Hello, Camp Morty, and welcome to Optical Illusions. My name is Stephanie, and I will be showing you how to make a particular kind of optical illusion called a Thaumatrope. Now, this is something from well over 100 years ago. It would have been magic trick or a toy or basically something that was a little bit adjacent to animation. So I already have a couple that are mostly made, and it involves having a picture. It's upside down. There we go. One picture on each side of a card that are meant to be seen together. So what's going to happen is by the time we're done, we'll be able to see both of these images at the same time so that the bird will look like it's in the cage or the worm will look like it's on the leaf. Now, before we get started, I am going to make a new one right here, but I want to let you know that there's two different ways to put these together. If you're going to use string, you can actually make them vertically like this or horizontally like this. If you want to use a stick or a dowel or something like that to put in the middle like this, it really, you want it to be vertical. And so that's the one I'm going to make here. So I'm going to get two different index cards. You can use one if you'd like and just draw on both sides of it, but sometimes it's actually easier to kind of keep both drawings next to each other. And one thing we're going to want to make sure of is that we're kind of working along the same bottom line. So you can take any sort of ruler or straight edge and kind of spill out on both of them at the same time. Just a little light pencil mark, just so I know where my drawing is going to be. And you also want to make sure that you're centering them, because the key to this illusion is going to be that these things are in the same place at the same time. The hardest part is coming up with something to draw, actually. So coming up with something that will make sense of having two different pieces of the drawing on two different separate sides that will then kind of combine into one image. You do not want them to be sequential. So do not have, drawing A and then drawing B as if we're seeing them in order, because you will be seeing them at the same time. So I'm actually going to be drawing a little snow globe with something in it, right? So the snow globe would be on one side and the other item would be on the inside. All right, so we're gonna kind of fast forward through that, but let's get started on the drawing. So as I get done with the first side, I do want to bring up something. You can use whatever you want to draw. I'm using crayons because I like crayons, but you can use color pencils, paint, whatever it is. But I would stick with high contrast, meaning dark colors against the white background, or if you have different color construction paper, things like that you're working with, then you can use colors that are the opposite of that color. But you want to make sure it's something that you're going to see very easily. I made the bird a little too dark on the inside, so he's not going to show up as well. But you want bright colors, dark colors. You want something that's going to pop because it's going to be moving really, really fast. So we want to make sure we stick with things that are a little bit brighter and deeper. And it's probably not going to show up in the camera, but one of the tricks you can use is I'm letting a little bit of light through the two index cards, so I can kind of see where I put, well, you can barely see the pencil, but I lightly outlined where I put the snow globe, so I know where to stick the thing that's in the snow globe. So now we're going to draw the interior. So now we got our little penguin. It's going to go into the snow globe. I already know I made him a little bit too tall, so this blue is going to obscure his hat a little bit. That's okay. I am going to erase this little outside line. Probably don't need to. It's probably not even showing up on the camera. but kind of clean that up a little bit. All right, so now we have to put it together. And there are a couple different ways of putting these together. The ones I had already prepared were on strings. So it would be, I don't know if I can do this vertically. I'm gonna have some shots later. There we go. So it would be string that you would simply flip around like this and get up to speed, and you would see them both at the same time. But if you want to use a stick, they go together pretty similarly, actually. We have to, so flip them around, right? So this one, right, we don't want the drawings obviously to be glued together. And you want to kind of test it by holding it like this and making sure it's going to line up properly. When we do them vertically like this, it usually does pretty well. And then if we're going to have a stick in the middle of this, I'm actually going to get rid of the one, and I'm going to put the stick in the middle first. And if you happen to have any kind of tape or glue that you can already like put down before you put this together, it's not a bad idea. I'm being very picky about putting it in the center. There we go. That can kind of help seal things up. It's not necessary, but I like to be extra secure. And then I'm going to put some glue down, if I have any. Stand by. There we go. Put a little bit of glue down. I don't need a super lot. It's going to probably bleed through a little bit. I'm using the tip of this to spread it around. I'll have to clean that off later. There we go. And then we're going to place this card over the first one. Oh my goodness, I missed I was avoiding the area where the stick is, but obviously it needs to be taped. It needs to be stuck to there too. There we go. I'm gonna file that down, make it as flat as possible. These are meant to be swung around, you know, and looked at, so they're gonna take a little bit of a beating. And in the meantime, I'm going to clean this up a little bit and allow that to dry. So we're going to let this one dry before we start spinning it around everywhere. And in the meantime, I'll show you how to do the version with the strings. And so whether it's horizontal or vertical, it's the same idea. We do need to punch a hole. I happen to have a 3-hole punch that I kind of stuck this in the middle and lined it up and put that down, but you can also kind of use a pencil or something like that, or very carefully with your parents, maybe use a pair of scissors and kind of go in there. But then we find 2 pieces of string. You can use yarn, you can use twine. The only string I had lying around was some kitchen twine, so we're going to use that. I make the 2 pieces about the same size, although since we have to tie knots in it, it doesn't matter that much. There we go. Now these 2 things were just glued together earlier. But one thing to keep in mind is if you have something horizontal like this, where it's lining up like this, you'll notice when I flip it over like this, they are both right side up. However, if I flip it over like this, the worm is upside down. So if I had these 2 cards next to each other, one would have to be upside down from the other, right? If we kind of right side up, upside down, right? Because we're flipping it this way when it faces. So that's why I said before, make sure you test it before you glue it to make sure they're going in the right direction. In this case, it won't matter that much. That's the other reason to do something like this, because the leaf really can go in either direction. So we're going to simply stick this through here. Come up with this and just, whoop, I'm off camera a little bit. Tie this together. I made a mess out of that. There we go. Make sure that's tight. And then do the same thing over here. Oop, there we go. Okie dokie. Ooh, I moved the knot a little bit. There we go. And there we have it. Now I have a stand right here holding the camera up, so I'm going to have to tilt this a little bit in order to try it. But let's give that a go. Let me line it up first. Now the speed this works at for the camera may not be the same speed this works at for the human eye. So I'm moving this pretty fast to see if I can make it work on the camera recording. You may not have to do it that fast to see it with your own eyes. Same with this one. We can give this a shot into the camera. There we go. You can see there's a little bit of a moment there where we see both at the same time. And if we use the stick one now, you can see this is meant to be kind of, held upright, and you do this. So I'm going to see if I can stand and make that happen. There we go. Whew. The glue's not quite dry, so it's a little bit bendy. Go a little bit faster with the stick than we can with the string. And you can see when it's really picking up, it's getting to that right speed. We can see both at the same time. This is called persistence of vision. Our brains actually record this image, imprint it physically on a nerve, and that when we see this image, the old image is still on that nerve. This is why the world does not go dark when you blink. You can actually test it right now. See, I blinked, and the world did not go completely dark. That's even though your eyes are completely shut when you blink. So this is actually a physiological phenomenon. Fancy word for it's something happening with your body physically that allows this to happen. And this is the same phenomenon that allows us to have movies, which are 24 frames a second going back and forth. Oh, that's upside down. 24 frames a second going in sequence. Nothing's actually moving. The term motion picture is a fake word. There's nothing actually moving in a motion picture, but our brains think there is because we can see the images after they have passed. The other way you can do this is if you want, you can wrap it around your fingers and spin it a bunch of times. And then when you pull it loose, it spins really quickly. All right, so this is, fancy word, a thaumatrope, but it is basically an optical illusion that you can make as for toys and for wowing your friends.